upcoming sessions, our speakers will focus on unraveling an exciting conversation on developing a digital first culture, top down or bottom up. Joining the frame are Vishal Kumar, CEO, Madura Fashion and Lifestyle, Rajiv Bhalla, Managing Director, Barco, Manpreet Singh Ahuja, CDO, PwC, and Dr. Tanaya Mishra, Global CHRO, Stride, also the member of Economic Times HR World's Advisory, as the session moderator. Welcome, Rajiv, Manpreet, Vishak, and Dr. Tanaya, and the frame is all yours.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session. Embracing the digital culture has probably been the be-all and end-all of all of us in the corporate world. And everyone really wants to be part of the Me Too culture, and everybody's jumping into this bandwagon. And to be rightfully so, it is really a reality post the COVID where we need that connectedness with our customers, to build our operational efficiency. Operational has to be better, the operational world. And we also need to build the connectedness between the people and the culture. But technically, who really is in the driver's seat? Is it the CEO? Is it the CDO? Is it the C-suite? Or is it really an informal movement of the people? So technically, there are two approaches that come to mind. And of course, as we move ahead in the discussion, we will discover if there's a third way. But typically, it's the top-down model, which centers around the vision, mission of the organization, which then dovetails into the strategy of the organization. Otherwise, it could be the bottom-up model also, where it is a mass movement of the people as they come in. So to ask this question, I will go to Vishak. Vishak, technology is embracing every industry, and the adoption is getting very, very quick. And nobody is really sticking to their lanes, right? So earlier it was the Benz, and Mercedes-Benz competitors were BMW and Lexus. But currently you have Tesla, Uber, Google, and similar, the same with retail closer home. So it was, if it was Walmart, one knew that, okay, the competitors were probably a Target and a Costco. But today, if you look at it, there is the Amazon, the Alibabas, and who not. So in retail, Vishak, what do you see changing in terms of fashion and lifestyle? And what is your overall strategy?
Thanks for that, Tanaya. I'm from an industry which is amongst the oldest professions in the world. Okay. And we are one of the three of Roti Kapda or Makan. So we give the Kapda part of it. And let me try and break your question into a few parts. Okay. First is, what are we selling? Okay. And how has that changed over a period of time? Second is, how are we selling it? Okay. And that has a lot of implication from the technology perspective that you're talking about. And then, of course, where are we selling it also, which has again been changed in the last few decades significantly. So what are we selling? It's still clothes, it's fashion. The basic need state that we address is the need to look good, right? And the need to look good has changed over generations, has changed over, and we have a whole lot of technology to be able to help us to figure what people want, regional nuances, local nuances. You also want to feel good during festivals, you want to feel good during your weddings and so on. I think we've made, it's been a steady evolution on the kind of products that you want, okay, how you believe you should look good, and we have addressed that through our brands, through the kind of products that we've created, through the entire creative process, design process. The second question is, where do you sell this? Okay, from a time when there was a mom and pop store from which you bought clothes, to the time when you went to department stores to buy, to shopping malls and the whole emergence of shopping malls around the country. It's a 20-year phenomenon. And of course, now a whole lot of buying which happens online. We as a business at Madura have always believed that we have to be where consumers want us to be. And that's a changing goalpost, and we will have to constantly evolve to be able to provide solutions to them where they want it. Okay. So if, let's say, today you want to buy, I'm guessing, Tanaya, you're at home right now, and maybe at the end of this, you feel like buying a red dress. Okay. And you want to buy an Alan Solly red dress. Okay. And you go to alansolly.com. I have to be able to make it really easy for Tanaya to make that shopping possible. Now Tanaya says, hey, hold on, it's for a party tonight. I have to be able to not only make it easy for Tanaya to do that ordering, but probably figure out how I can give her a hyperlocal solution which will deliver to her in 4 hours. Okay, so all of this is how the business has to keep evolving to be able to meet changing needs of. Now, this wasn't a need for Tanaya even 4 years back. She wouldn't just say sitting at home that, okay, let me order and expect it to come in 4 hours. Okay, she was barely beginning to do that for grocery. Now to be able to say, look, I want this to happen to my party dress for tonight. Yeah. So some of these are the ways that in which we're changing. And of course, in all of this, the physical product also has dramatically changed over time. Right from wrinkle-free solutions to solutions for different weathers, temperatures, for kids' clothes, where the clothes grow with you, as we've done in Peter England. You can you can extend the clothes much longer. To, of course, even in COVID times, antiviral treatments given to our fabrics so that they would not spread through fomite transfer. So multiple things that have happened with technology to be able to keep pace with. So I hope that answers your question, Tanaya. It's basically organizations will have to keep evolving to stay relevant to changing consumer needs.
Absolutely, Vishak. I mean, you almost reminded of a story when I was a young girl called the Emperor's Invisible Clothes, where he had so much of choice, that he really didn't know what to do with all the clothes that he had. But I think not trying to brand Swiggy, but I guess you will want to be the next Instamart of Swiggy. And since I use that so often, I can quite relate to what you're saying, Vishak. Thank you so much for that. Rajiv, coming on to you. Companies have to rethink their overall business model to be relevant, to engage with the customers, the vendors, the people, the board. So therefore, what, according to you, are the building blocks of a digital first culture for ensuring scalable and sustainable transformation?
Well, Tanaya, what the pandemic has done is kind of accelerated the adoption of digital, right? A key lesson learned from the pandemic is every business needs to be a digital business. So I'd start by saying that it's important when you're building a digital first culture to look at having leadership recognition and acceptance that they need to adopt digital, drive digital transformation if they want to survive and thrive. I mean, talk to me today of a leader who's afraid of technology, and I'd say there's a disaster waiting to happen. The other building block, if I may use that word, would be around having a company first mindset and will. There needs to be a will to aggressively adopt digitization and processes to the extent possible. There needs to be recognition that we need to be flexible and agile in today's day and age and world. And when you're actually driving this digital first culture, it's important that the leadership builds trust, communicates the digital goals, the path to digital, the digital strategy, and actually looks towards having everybody onboarded on that digital bandwagon so that it's a company-wide initiative. And again, we've all learned that in today's day and age, every organization, every individual needs to be on a lifelong learning mode. So companies really need to work towards educating their associates, their employees, to ensure that they understand what are the new trends in technology. The employees actually kind of experiment with new tools in technology and see for themselves how these tools can actually impact decision making. And that's where data-based decision making in today's day and age becomes extremely crucial. One of the things that one has also learned during the pandemic is, work is not a place anymore. Work is all about outcomes and results. I mean, a lot of us today are working from our home locations. Some of us are in the office. So physical is no longer the only way to connect, right? And when you are actually driving a digital first work culture, it becomes critical that you also have a robust IT infrastructure in place if you want to build that digital first culture, right? You've got to have the tools, you've got to have the backup to actually promote hybrid working. So I would call that also as an essential building block. And whilst we are talking about all of this, I think HR policies are majorly being retooled to kind of reward, recognize employees in this new hybrid world, right? Whilst we do that, it's also important to build in how you're going to drive engagement with the folks who are working in a hybrid manner. How do you keep them motivated remotely? So I guess HR and talent policies, besides driving reskilling and upskilling, have also got to look at how do they drive engagement and motivation. Um, and aligned with one of our culture blocks, which says that we think with the customer, I think it's also important to ensure that when you are up in this digital journey or driving a digital first culture, you actually also include the customer in your digital journey. You kind of connect with him, you co-create products, bringing him on. And just to conclude, I'd say that every company needs to take a 3 C's approach. You got to look at compassion, you got to look at caring for your employees, and you've got to look at coaching them up, right? And the ultimate goal, as a friend of mine says, is to ensure that all the employees get a PhD. In other words, they have passion, hunger, and desire to get onto the innovation journey. So that's my bit, Tanya.
If I can take a liberty and just add on to this, Rajiv and Tanaya, everything that Rajiv said resonates in terms of making a transformation come to life. But the point that I want to make is, as we look around, there is not a company that's not on a transformation journey, but I can tell you about 60 to 70% of companies are in the transformation journey with just trying to be in the game. They're confused between real transformation and digitization. And which is where the problem is. You're comfortable that you're in the journey of transformation, but by the way, you're not trying to compete with the business of the future. You're not trying to transform the way, the goals are not audacious enough, is one part that I also wanted to bring to the table. But once you have that goalpost right, everything that Rajiv spoke completely resonates.
Just building on what Manpreet and Rajiv said, maybe there's one C which can be avoided, and that's confusion.
That's a good one.
I'll tell you why I'm saying this, because a lot of times, some of these become corporate jargon, and it's extremely important that that gets avoided. And there is huge amount of clarity on what is your digital vision, what is your digital charter or agenda, okay, and go after those with the right technology, hardware, infrastructure, and so on, rather than make it one hazy, people should know, mujhe kya karna hai? How is it that this is going to impact my life? Should become easy to all your ecosystem.
I was just adding to what Rajiv was saying, because let's also, it has a butterfly effect. And last year was considered, and probably this year is going to be the year of the big resignation. So where digital will really have to kick in. So we'll have to really put all our employees on Fevicol, I guess. So Manpreet, coming to the next one, I have a very interesting one for you. In 1992, when the internet was relatively new, we had an American novelist called Neil Stephenson, who spoke about virtual reality. And he spoke about a virtual reality where there would be digital avatars which will live, work, and play online. The term that he used was meta, beyond, and verse, which is universe. So which is the metaverse technically. So now if you look at it, the big tech companies that are using this is Google, Facebook, and they're revolutionizing the universe. Now, what is your advice to corporates, being the chief digital officer? And also, I have a second bit to that. So how do you see the physical and the virtual world play together?
Yeah, no, this is really interesting. And it's, God knows, taken 30 years post the novelist for people to realize the magnitude of how big this opportunity is. So, clearly, Tanaya, Metaverse is got endless possibilities out there for the society at large and for the corporate, corporate Inc. As well. A lot of innovation can happen in Metaverse because you kind of suddenly take away the limitations of a real world, in that journey. And what that will mean is, a far more immersive, a far more collaborative, a far more interactive ecosystem that you would be able to create, for businesses, for societies, for friends, and that will create a significant new need in the metaverse, which is where new business models will come in, which is where new revenue streams will come in, which is where a ton of effort will go in terms of building your business relevance in that world. So when Vishak earlier was talking about fashion being the oldest business and talking about the red dress, you soon have to start thinking, saying, what is Tanaya or Manpreet or Rajiv going to be wearing in that metaverse, and how is it that he's going to attract the people in that world? So it's significantly bigger and bolder than what internet did to business some years back. And that's the opportunity. Now, of course, it's easier said than done, because if companies have to play a role in the metaverse, they will have to ensure how seamlessly a customer can transact in metaverse and engage with the brand, engage with the product. How will I pay for it? How will I make sure I have a seamless service delivered? Will I have easy access to cryptocurrencies for me to do that transaction? How will I buy my piece of land in that area? I mean, are things that will have to be thought through, which is, and I feel it's a big opportunity, but really a lot of work, a lot of that blockchain ecosystem needs to be brought into the organizations for them to start playing a significant role in that space.
Thank you for that. So Vishak, I'm going to take commission from you because I've already started, giving food for thought in terms of, what is going to be the next step in terms of fashion and beauty. Okay, my next question is to you, Vishak. So what approach do you think you were going to follow to create an overall culture of innovation, whether it is top down or bottom up in the organization?
Okay, I think I would like to believe we already have one. And yet this is a moving goalpost. Okay, this is something where you have to keep questioning yourself. You have to stay insecure all the time on something like this. First things first, how embedded is culture in the organization is also about, is innovation in the organization about the organizational culture of, first, is there a framework? For example, we use a stage gate approach for a lot of product innovations. Okay, and there is an entire process, an entire funnel through which products go through final test and launch, etc. What is the softer underlying theme in the organization? How encouraging are mistakes in the organization? Is it okay to make mistakes? Is it okay to fail? Is it okay to fail spectacularly, and so on? I think that's some of the other things that, how do you handle failures? How do you handle mistakes, and so on, is something, again, is very important. I did hear you asked about top down, bottom up, etc. To me, frankly, it's, innovation usually is in the air. I know in the air is a bad word nowadays, but innovation has to be something which is in the air. Like Rajiv said earlier, the leadership has to walk the talk. Okay, it starts there. Leadership has to demonstrate how important it is to drive innovation. How central is consumer to all of this? If the consumer is not at the center of all of these innovations, I'll tell you this. For example, since we are in the COVID world right now, 2 years back, we had never made a mask. Okay, and suddenly this country, this world needed masks. We had a team of about 10, 12 crack team that we put together between product, design, R&D, fabric sourcing, and so on. Said, look, we have to create a product. To cut a long story short, we have sold about 1.5 crore masks. Okay, And we have now already done 3 generations of innovation on masks, starting from bacterial filtration, viral filtration of levels which are very, very, they are the standards of filtration, to antiviral treatments, to breathability, to how well it covers your face, to double masking, so all I'm trying to say is a product that we've never done before. Not only are we arguably market leaders in it, but it's a continuous process of innovation to see how do we make this product. So review ratings, panel discussions with consumers, asking them constantly on how they feel about the product, changing certain attributes and asking them how. I think and there is huge pride. It's not a very large sales business for us, but there's a lot of pride in the fact that we've been able to create an innovative product which met the needs of consumers for a large period of time, including now. Mask is the most searched word in our category. Okay, so now it's extremely important for consumers to get the right kind of mask. Okay, and nobody knew at that time who should supply this. Is this the medical guys who have to do this? Is it the which people should do this? And we did this, and I think to good effect. So, point Tanaya, to cut a long story short, I think the innovation, culture of doing something new, trying something new, has to be in the air. There has to be a spirit of what does good look like, a framework which tells you. There has to be an acceptance of failures, and acceptance of the fact that some things won't work, and deal with that and learn from that.
Vishak, it gives me a great sense of confidence that the next time I'm buying a mask, somebody has really done a lot of research that has gone into that mask. But also it's becoming a bit of a fashion statement. So, and so
by the way, we did that also. By the way, we have a line where the shirt design goes onto the mask, and we did stuff for kids with lots of cartoonish things, and so there's a lot of that also.
Perfect. Thank you. My next question to you, Rajiv, is while we're doing the top down and the bottom up, the large population is at the middle. So what is it that you and your company are doing to ensure that there is innovation and the middle folks are engaged?
I loved what Vishak said, right? It's Tanaya, innovation is in the air. And frankly, whenever you're driving innovation, it's more of a movement in my mind's eye. It cannot be really driven by a top-down mandate, right? So whenever you're driving that innovation process, you've got to have the buy-in from everybody in the organization, right? I mean, it's got to reside in the hearts and habits of how people do things. It's a shared perception in terms of what you want to do and how do you want to do it, right? And to drive that innovation agenda, I think the middle layer is extremely crucial, right? Very often we take decisions on the top and then try to push it through. But critically, we've got to realize, I mean, my learning has been that you've got to have the middle layer aligned. They're the guys actually with the most amount of knowledge in terms of driving change. They have the most amount of experiences in terms of implementing it. And frankly, they can even, they have these informal networks that could either act as catalysts or could act as barriers to the innovation agenda. So having them aligned is extremely crucial. And what we typically do is communicate. I firmly believe that whenever you're driving any change or any innovation, you've got to, I repeat what I said earlier, you've got to have a trustworthy, authentic communication where you kind of call out the goals, you address the concerns of these middle layer. You speak to them in terms of letting them know what do you want to do, why are you doing it, what is in it for them, why they should support you, and then you also build in the bells and whistles in terms of ensuring you have the check-ins and you reward them and recognize them. I once this is done, then I typically look at empowering them, providing them with all the support and tools that they need to drive the change agenda, build in some kind of additional support by driving upskilling or provide them the other support that they need in terms of implementing change. And then look towards having those periodic check-ins. That's what we typically do, Tanaya, at Barco.
Thank you so much, Rajiv. So, Manpreet, my question to you is that, what are some of the best practices that you have initiated, and what are some of the pearls of wisdom that you would like to give as a parting statement?
No, sure, absolutely. Just on this discussion, the point that was coming to my mind was, everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die, right? And and that's the story of transformation, right? There is every single CEO, board member, C-suite that's gunning and pitching transformation, but you know what? It needs a lot of hard and tough calls to be taken. It's not an easy journey, and I got to put this another one as well. And I read it the other day, and it says, if you have to be keeping everyone happy, then you'd much rather sell lollipops than actually sort of run transformation. So, I mean, my two bits is the goal for transformation needs to be ambitious enough for the company, employees, and the whole ecosystem to see a dramatically different value being delivered. And once you set that goal at that level, it then cannot be a job that can be delegated to a transformation or a digital or a technology person or an innovator that you hire from a sort of new age company or digital first company. Then it becomes the CEO's day job. And that to me is the single most important agenda. The second thing, however, is even if you get this piece right, you've got to always think this is a change that you can't push. You have to win the hearts and the minds as well. So end of the day, there has to be a conversation around what does it mean for me? How is it that I will take the whole organization along? It's not about trying to divide the organization into, here are a bunch of people who are the new age people who are kind of moving at a fast speed and the others are kind of lagging behind. I mean, you can't have one feet in hot water and the other feet in cold water. I mean, it's tough. So you've got to take the whole organization along, which is the next very, very important bit. And just the last bit I want to amplify what Rajiv just said is, very often when companies take that audacious goal, you look around for talent and said, you know what, he's done that for Tesla, he's done that for Amazon, he's done that for another company. Let me get, he or she in to run this for me. I mean, that's just one part of the puzzle. Unless you get your citizens engaged on that topic and start driving a citizen-led innovation who are closer to the customer, who can put this in context of what the customer journey for your business is going to mean, you're not going to be able to deliver an impact at scale. You can set up all the infrastructure, but the adoption of that infrastructure for your customer will not happen. So how do you cascade that top-down thinking to the citizen, vitalize them for running micro innovation day to day, and then have the middle managers sort of pick up things that can be then scaled up to the CEO's agenda, is the third one that needs to be done. Not an easy journey, but clearly the only way you can sustain this aspect.
Thank you. In fact, from Metaverse, I can also think of the next target that, was be teleporting without dying to heaven. So we saw that in Star Trek during when we were growing up. So, so thank you very much, Vishak, Rajiv, and Manpreet. If there are any last lines from any one of you, happy to take any last lines. Otherwise, thank you so much.
Thank you, panel, for an interesting and detailed session. I thoroughly enjoyed the session and the reflections, and I'm going to see you on the other side now. Thank you.